Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the third and final session in our series called Learn to Podcast with Dr. Vibe. My name is Jordan Huntsberger. I'm a program manager at Innovation Guelph, and I'm so glad you could all join us today. I'm joined by my wonderful colleague, Diana Train, who is our facility and events manager. She's given everyone a wave. Diana will be helping me on the call today. For participants that require ASL interpretation, we have two ASL interpreters on the call, Carolyn and Rosalie from Sign Language Interpreting Associates Ottawa. Please pin or spotlight them to access this call in ASL. We have also enabled the closed captioning option, which you can turn on the bottom of your screen. I would like to take a moment to thank our corporate sponsors, Ernst & Young, Reese Informatica, Invest in Guelph, and BDO. We are very grateful for their support that lets us execute events like this one. Before beginning the session today, I would like to give recognition to the land that Guelph is on. We acknowledge that many others here today may be on different territory, so we invite and encourage each of you to give recognition to the land you occupy today and every day. As we gather for today's event, we are reminded that Guelph is situated on treaty land that is steeped in rich Indigenous history and home to many First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people today. As a city, we have a responsibility for the stewardship of the land on which we live and work, and today we acknowledge the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation of the Anishinaabe people on whose traditional territory we are meeting. In case some of you are new to Innovation Guelph, I will give you a very quick background. Innovation Guelph is one of 17 regional innovation centers in Ontario. And while we are located in Guelph, we serve the entire region of Southern Ontario and have one national program. This means that while most of our clients are relatively close by, we do have clients in BC, all the way out to Nova Scotia, and all throughout Ontario. We work with our clients, supporting them through multiple stages of business growth, from startup to scale up, with lots of programs, workshops, networking opportunities, and even a trade show called the Ontario Innovation Expo. Without further ado, I'll introduce our main event. You are joining us for Podcasting 103, our Ask Me Anything session. A recording of this session will be available on our Innovation Guelph YouTube channel next week, and I will post a link in the chat box toward the end of today's session with our YouTube playlist that already has Podcasting 101 and Podcasting 102 there for you to watch. There won't be any presentation slides for today's session, but we will be distributing a resource sheet in a couple days that contains information and resources that Dr. Vibe has mentioned throughout the series that might be helpful for you as you decide to launch your own podcast. Today's session is going to work a bit differently than the other two sessions we've had if you did attend those, since we don't have any pre-planned content. Dr. Vibe will be guiding us through an Ask Me Anything style session for the next hour and a half. You are encouraged to turn your camera on and take yourself off mute to ask questions throughout, but the chat box is available as well if you're more comfortable asking questions that way. For our attendees who would like to ask a question through one of our ASL interpreters, please send a message to either myself or Diana Train, and we will invite you to come on camera to ask your question. I wanted to quickly share a bit more about our speaker for those who weren't able to attend our first two sessions, but I do encourage you to watch recordings of Podcasting 101 and 102 on our YouTube channel, because Dr. Vibe goes into a lot of detail about his background and experiences that have led to his successful podcasts today, and you would just get a way better understanding of who Dr. Vibe is if you watch those two sessions as well, and visit his website too and watch some of his podcasts that he's put out there. So Dr. Vibe has been a host and producer of the award-winning online show, The Dr. Vibe Show, for over 12 years and has done over 4,000 online interviews with people from all over the world. Dr. Vibe has worked with the City of Toronto. He is a business advisor for the Canadian Black Chamber of Commerce's Elevated Business Project, and he has been the co-host and co-producer of the only online show for dads and fathers in the world, sponsored by Dove Men Plus Care. He has won 2 awards through the Canadian Ethnic Media Association and has been a certified coach since June 2015. Before I hand it over to Dr. Vibe, I wanted to
Wow.
just have a couple prompts up here, some question prompts for us, for those who didn't come with any questions in mind. So I will keep the slide up for just a few minutes while Dr. Vibe starts talking, so you can get your questions percolating. But then I'll stop sharing my screen so that we can all see each other and interact throughout today's call. Diana and I also have a list of questions that you all submitted in advance ahead of the last 3 sessions, so we can refer to those if we need to. But I wanted to take advantage of the question and answer period we're having today by kicking things off. So I have a question to kick things off for us, Dr. Vibe.
Yes.
So Dr. Vibe, you've
Uh-oh.
told us throughout the last few weeks that it's important to enjoy what you're doing because your audience will notice if you're not. So what made you fall in love with podcasting, and how do you maintain your passion for it? Please tell us.
Wow. And here's the person I've been working with over the last few months. She's grilling me right at the beginning. Okay. Well, welcome everybody, whether you're watching this live or on replay. Appreciate you being here. Why did I wanted to share the experiences initially? This is my first journey of Black men and those who love them, because too many times I was watching in the media, they were portrayed being somewhere involved with the criminal justice system in a negative light, or entertainers. And the Black men that I was speaking with weren't those. They were everyday guys doing the best they could. And I said, I just wanted to provide a safe and brave space for them to express their journey. That's what it started out with. And now it's more into storytelling, getting to hear people's stories, because I feel that most of us have a very valuable story that we're not willing to share. And I want to provide, again, a safe and brave space so people can feel comfortable to share their story, because it will impact so many other people globally. How do I keep excited? Because every person I have a conversation with, I learn something from, and also something that I can share with somebody. So I don't do it for myself. I do it through me, and always finding out interesting conversations, just hearing someone's journey, and especially if they've never shared it before. That's a very humbling experience and a humbling position to be in, that I can provide a safe and brave space for that person to share their journey. And I always learn so much. It's always, even when Jordan, you and I have done a number of podcasts, believe it or not, because every week we've been on together, it's like a podcast, and we're always learning and exchanging experiences. And I always want to hope that people will leave better than when they started, or they had that aha moment, or they learned something going, wow, or they can relate to that person saying, oh, I can relate with that. Even up to last night, I was having a conversation live with a gentleman who's just produced a film about social justice, about funding the police. And he's a white Jewish gentleman, but he's very passionate about defunding the police. And 3 or 4 years ago, when we first met digitally, this was the farthest thing from his mind. And I said to him, I knew you when. He says, yeah. And you know what? You helped me. You gave me one of the people that just kept me going. That's really humbling. But it shows that how someone can have a dream, goal, and desire, like many of us do. And if you stay persistent, consistent, don't quit, and do it with the right intent, magic can happen. And it was even funny too, because he had asked me for some of the people that I've had conversations with to be part of the documentary, and they said yes. So I hope that answers your question.
Absolutely. It answers my question and then some. Thank you so much.
No problem.
I'm going to just stop sharing my screen so we can all see each other and interact and engage today. So you can continue to take it away, Dr. Vibe, and Diana and I will jump in as needed.
Okay, well, I see some questions in the chat. So I'm always in good hands with our ASL and Jordan, Diana. So you just lead me. You're steering and driving the ship. Go ahead.
Absolutely. I'd love to ask this question on behalf of Altafina. Her question is, what is a good method to connect with new collaborators?
Yeah, this is always a good question. And hey, you know what? I'm raising my hand. I have to do that a lot. I have to reach out to people that I've never met before. So what I like to do is this is my method. I like to send video introductions. That's just me. And what I'll do is, and this is not only for podcasts, but for business wise, video introductions. And what I do with that is I basically, in about a minute, minute and a half, give the who, what, where, and why. And I'm saying, hey, my audience would benefit from you being on the show. Would you be interested in having like an 11-minute meeting just to see if there's an alignment? Is it something that you'd like to do, and just get to know them? So I like to do that. Email is okay, but how many people get too many emails? Right. So when you get too many, when you get a video message, and I'm going to use an example because I'm not going to say I just don't talk the talk, I walk the walk. I actually sent a video message to the IG team last week.
Loved it.
Right? That's so unique, and so many people say it's so personal. People like to feel valued. You took time to do this personal message for me. So that's the method I use. You can also use the email one, but the big key too is make sure you follow up and follow through. So if I'm sending a video message or an email message to someone I have met before, 99% of the time, my last line is looking forward to hearing from you. If I don't hear back from you within 3 business days, I'm going to follow up with you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so
follow up is key.
Follow up and follow through is key. So you're telling that person you're going to follow up with them. How many people do that? Right? So it gives you a reason to say, hey, how you doing? Just send your note. As I said in my note, I'm going to follow up and follow through with you. They're going to go, wow, this person's serious. They're a person of their word. So that's what I use. Again, you can contact me offline and I can show you. If I knew you're going to ask that question, I'd actually show you some of the videos. But if you contact me offline, I can actually show you a video, any video introductions that I do. So I hope that answers your question.
Well, thank you.
Well, you're welcome.
I'm just following up with Lyndon. Lyndon's question was, what platform do you use for your video introductions? That's a fabulous question. Okay,
so the one I use, and there's a free version and a paid version, is called Loom, Loom. Now, I haven't used the free version for a while because I've been using the paid version for about 2-3 years. Now, don't quote me, and Jordan, let's make a note of that because we'll put that as in the resources. Now, don't quote me 100% because I haven't used the free version for a long time, but I believe they give you maybe like 50 1-minute videos for free that you can do. Now, the nice thing is when you especially use the paid version, they can be as long as you want. They have features like call to action you can put. You can also provide interpretation, closed caption in your videos you send. Now, here's the real sweet bonus. You get notified when they open it. There, that's the key. You get notified when they open it. And after you finish the video, all you need to do is get the link. And what I like to do is say, hey, hope you're doing okay. I've just sent you a really quick video for you to watch. Because you don't want to say the same thing in your email message as you are in the video, because that's doubling it up. You can if you want, but you just send that link, and then once they open it, they've opened it, then you can follow up with them. Because people don't like getting emails that read receipt. No one likes that. No one likes to read receipts. So they're tracking me. Okay. Another question.
Let's see. We have one from a follow-up from Lyndon. Thank you, Lyndon.
Yeah. Hi, Lyndon. I'd love to hear her. I'd love to hear your voice. You look like you have a really good voice. Are you comfortable giving your voice?
Yeah, absolutely.
Good stuff.
Yeah. Hello.
Hey.
Yeah, I have lots of questions, so I can
fire away. You got me. I'm in lockdown till 2:30. All right.
Okay. Well, yeah. How much research do you do sort of as prep? So things like that you then know about your guests in advance versus how much do you just ask questions in your interviews?
Okay, great question. So I'll be totally open here. I'd say for 90% of them, I've done some research. I haven't gone deep, but I'll give you a perfect example. And my technical thing's going to go funny here in a minute. So let me turn off my screen just for a second so I can get my background's going to behave. All right. My background's going to behave. All right. What I do, and this is one of the reasons why I said, I think earlier on, if you can have a pre-conversation with your guest, that goes a long way. Of course, you can do research online or ask your guests, what do you want to talk about? Put the power in their lap. Now, you want to chat with them, etc., etc. You can do research online. Ask them, and now if you're doing a business podcast, ask your guests, do you want to promote anything? Do you have any events coming up? Do you have any product coming out you'd like to promote? I would say you can use online. You can ask them, do they have a bio? Plus headshots. Now, here's a perfect example. On Wednesday of last week, I got approached by the press secretary of the Canada's Minister for Seniors. And just recently, the Prime Minister and the Premiers signed an agreement for health transfers, which means more money for seniors' homes, etc. So I had to really, and all I had was 15 minutes. And so I did research on this. I'll say this kindly, most of the time when government people come on, they fill up the whole area of time. So I just made sure I asked one or two questions saying like, find the background of the legislation, how's it going to impact? And she took up 18 out of the 20 minutes. And I felt happy that I got 5 minutes more than 15 minutes. So research is always key. Research is always key. So better to go in with research than none. So let me ask Lyndon, okay, if you don't mind me going a little bit deeper with you, if you're going to be doing a podcast, do you know what topic you'd be doing it on?
Absolutely.
Go ahead. Are you comfortable to share?
Sure. Right now, the working title is I don't know if it'll be the best meal I ever made or the best meal you ever made. Oh. And it's just talking about a really great dish that someone's made, and it's really light and fun, and it'll be all kinds of different people, all kinds.
Well, I'm a foodie, so you already got me hooked. So you got to stay in touch with me when that premieres. Okay. I'm in. Like I'm a Food Network junkie, by the way, but I'm in, right? Yeah. Like, so I would say this is my suggestion. Research, and you wouldn't have to really do too much research because they're going to be, find out, what's the recipe, etc. I'd say I'd prepare them ahead of time. Say, look, we're going to come on. We're going to ask a little bit about your background, and then give the story behind how this dish became a reality. Another question I would say is, what was it like preparing this dish for the first time? Who ate it for the first time? What was their reaction when they ate the dish for the first time?
Yep.
And you're having a conversation. It's not even really an interview. You're just having a conversation, really. And it's almost like you two are sitting at the dinner table. That's almost looking at we're just sitting at the dinner table. I'm at the kitchen table and you're cooking while we're having this conversation, this sort of visual look. Yeah. Is that helpful?
Yeah, that's very helpful. One of my next questions was, for your particular podcast, how much do you do as far as setting expectations and really sort of guiding guests, and what do you do with respect to like a preparatory email? I guess you do that conversation.
Yeah, I do.
For pacing and things like that. I think it's
great question. As you go along in your journey, one of the things I would do is send your upcoming guests one of your previous shows so they get the rhythm, what it's like, because you want to set them up for success. What I do, again, I tell people it all depends what type of conversation. Most of my conversations, a person comes on, I've done some research. I always ask them the first question, tell me a little bit about yourself. And just like if I'm doing an hour-long conversation, the first 15 minutes is just getting the person's background. And there'll be maybe questions from that. And that gets the person comfortable because some of them have never done this before. So most people like to talk about themselves. So if they're comfortable talking about themselves and you're, as we call it, mirror and matching, which means whatever they're saying, you're responding back to. So for example, if Wayne Gretzky was talking to me, I wouldn't talk to him about football. He's a hockey guy. So I want to make sure I stay in line. And that's where the listening is critical. Critical. Because if you are listening and responding to what they are saying, they feel respected. If they feel respected, they feel comfortable. If they feel comfortable, the more they're willing to share with you and share with the audience. Keep on going. I know you got more questions. I see it in your face. You got more. It's all right.
I just don't want to. I don't want to like be the dominant.
Well, I'll let Diana and Jordan.
Yeah.
I got a question. That's okay.
Sure, Jay.
So it's a technical question, but I don't want you to solve my technical problem. The question is, so the problem. So between the last webinar and this one, my co-founder and I, we actually we test created a podcast. We did an intro. We created one. Like all good.
Whoa! Come on now. Good stuff.
But there's like one big problem with it. Challenge. We recorded with Riverside.
Okay.
And which is like really good. I strongly recommend it. It's like solid, especially if you're having kind of guests come in and that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. But my audio is off with my video by like kind of 3/4 of a second, but all the other guests are okay. So I'm not asking for like a specific, hey, how do I solve this problem? But my co-founder and I were talking about how like these types of technical problems can just persist. Yeah. And it's these little things that'll just drive you nuts. So again, not trying to take up the space to say solve my problem, but what's your recommendation when people have problems like this and you're just like, I cannot put it out like this. It looks horrible. Where do you go? What do you do?
There's so many. I'm gonna go deep dive in this. First of all, are you using Wi-Fi? Yes or no?
Wi-Fi, like my home internet Wi-Fi. Yeah. That
may be your challenge right there. Okay. When you're doing, especially if you're doing a video podcast, best to use direct connection. And I hear where you're coming from. And that's another thing too. If you're going to do a video podcast, strongly recommend your guests have a direct internet connection.
Got it.
Because when you're using Wi-Fi, you're taking chances there. Because I even had a conversation last night that the gentleman was using Wi-Fi and he froze for a moment. And there were parts where, as he said, he was speaking, but the audio was not in sync with his lips. So again, that's another thing. If you have a pre-conversation with your upcoming guest, take some time, say, hey, do you have 15 minutes? Let's just do a test and see if everything's okay on your end. Or if you don't get a chance to do that, ask them to log in about 15, 20 minutes early so you can just test their technical end and also test your technical end. But I'm more than happy to offline. I'd like to just see where the challenge is, because that's my first thing, that it may be Wi-Fi. And second thing, when you're doing video podcasts, close all your other windows, because video podcasts can take up a lot of bandwidth. Now, I haven't used Riverside in a bit. Is Riverside web-based or do you have to download it?
It is web-based.
So then I'm there very much thinking it's a Wi-Fi.
Okay.
But I'm hoping to get an email from you, and we'll take some time, and I just want to test that out. Like Riverside, I would recommend. I use StreamYard, which is also web-based and allows that, and Riverside is good also. So I highly recommend either one, but I think that may be your first challenge right there, using the Wi-Fi. And I know it's a pain, especially for your audience, but do remember, Jay, most people will tolerate somewhat bad video, but they won't tolerate bad audio.
Right.
And if bad comes to bad, if you have a guest, and I don't know if Riverside has that feature, you can turn off your camera and they just hear the audio part. Again, as long as they can hear it, most people will tolerate that. But definitely, I think that's a Wi-Fi issue. Challenge,
Right.
challenge. Is that helpful?
It is. Thank you.
Looking forward to hearing from you. Excellent. And congratulations again, making a decision and taking action since the last conversation. That's good stuff.
We have a question in the chat box from Mickey. Do you
Who's
ever
that?
share?
Who's that? I don't know who Mickey is.
Do you ever share your research or questions ahead of time with your interviewees, or is it best to keep a true conversation with no organized prep?
Good. Another good question. Some people ask for questions ahead of time. Most people don't. When you're dealing with people like government people, they like to get questions ahead of time. Mickey and I spoke last week, and I said before we came on live, interviewed Wes Hall, who's one of the dragons on Dragon's Den, and his people wanted questions ahead of time. What I did, though, is I gave the questions ahead of time. I say, these are some of the questions we could potentially answer. We probably won't get to all of them, but at least they have a framework, and I make sure that I at least ask some of those questions during the conversation. But like Wes, in the first 5 minutes, said he's a Jehovah's Witness. That wasn't on the list of questions. So I asked about that. So you give them a script, say, hey, we're gonna pretty much stay the script, but if an interesting conversation piece comes up, we're gonna ask about it. So you want to prepare them ahead of time. Is that fair, Mickey? And I owe you something, that. So you're watching me.
Good. Yeah, no, that helps, because I'm one of those people who, if you wanted to have a conversation and I knew I was being recorded and you were playing it somewhere, I would probably freeze and not be able to answer. So if I could prep on the overall questions and direction of what we were talking about, and then just turn it into a genuine, you can easily do with people, right?
Yeah, and it's so much too. If that other person feels that you're listening to them and you're treating them with respect, that gives you some more space.
Makes sense.
Because they feel safe with you, because they don't want to be on an interview and I tell people, I'm going to ask you questions based on your subjects you give to me.
Yeah. So you're not going to do some secret research and find out something awful about their background and then pounce on them.
No, that's for TMZ. That's TMZ. That's not Dr. V. That's TMZ. That's not Dr. V. All right.
Yeah. No, thank you very much.
Great question. Thank you. Really appreciate it. Excellent. Who's next? We're on fire now.
I had my hand up, but I'll just lower my hand virtually and just ask it. So this is sorry, it's another technical question. When you so cameras, for the most part, I think cameras and mics both have their own apps to set up the settings and all that sort of thing on your laptop or on your computer. When you're recording your podcast in StreamYard or something like Riverside, do you keep the app for the mic and or the camera open, or do you shut the app down and just record it through the actual recording software?
You have
like the mic, for example, you can adjust your settings and kind of you near, you far, all that sort of thing, and then it's okay, you've got that, it's open, you're ready to record. Is there any harm in keeping that software for the mic and the camera open while you record, or are you supposed to shut it down and then just record directly into the?
Good question. So what I'll tell you, Jason, I'll run you through what I do for a StreamYard. Go into StreamYard, set up my mic, set up my camera. That's where I take my content from. Now, StreamYard allows you to do local recordings. What that means is it provides a separate recording for each one of the guests. So that may be interesting. So that may be
Riverside. Riverside does that.
Does that too?
It takes a separate audio and video for each of the guests.
Yeah, you have that option. But for me, I just use my microphone, use my camera, good to go.
Got it. Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I really need to hear from you now because you're going deep. StreamYard.com. Yes.
Yes, so I will let you know that I shared your email address with the group.
Yes.
Already.
I'm ready to hear from them. I'm ready to book some time with them and get some more clarity.
Absolutely. Well, I actually have a question. And,
no.
Yeah, no, surprise, surprise. So being that I've worked at Innovation Guelph for 5 years now, and we support entrepreneurs, and so often and we get questions about sponsorship.
Oh,
And I'm just wondering how it's a difficult subject. It's sometimes hard to find funding. It's hard to find sponsorship. It can
Yep.
be, quite an issue to tackle if you're looking at it like when it's ahead of you. So
Yep.
do you have any suggestions of how maybe you have found sponsorship and it's helped you? Because again, like you've got Dove behind you, which is pretty huge.
Okay, so I'm going to say this is probably going to be, and I'm speaking, and Mickey's in the house, and Linda's probably in the house. I'll probably be doing a webinar just on that.
Okay.
But what I will say in regards to sponsorship is a few things. I know most of you here are just starting out, but you don't have to have a huge community to have sponsorship. The organization I'm a part of, Dad Central, we only have, I'm going to say no more than, if you take all our social media platforms, our email list is pretty big. So I'd say 8,000 followers. So that's social media, email subscribers, etc. Dove Men Plus Care and our collaboration with them is the only one in the world that they have with any group, any fatherhood group.
Yeah.
The most important thing, some more things. When it comes to sponsorship, most companies are looking for either three things: sales conversion, leadership authority, or publicity. Not every company, when they do sponsorship, is looking for sales. And I'll give you, so our arrangement with Dove Men Plus Care, has nothing to do with selling product. They want to get their message out about fatherhood to as many fathers as possible. That is what the collaboration is based on, not sales.
Fabulous.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So just right there, for entrepreneurs, don't go with an assumption, which is one of the worst words in the world, that companies are just looking for you to convert sales. They may just want to look like a good corporate citizen or a leadership authority.
Okay.
So that is why, if you're looking for sponsorship, yes, you should have some numbers. Okay, I'm not going to go too deep into this, but the key thing is getting a meeting with your potential sponsor and finding out what they need, what are they looking for. As I say, my first question is always, what's keeping you up at night?
No, that's great advice.
Right.
I think so many of us are thinking sponsors, and we're thinking like, yeah, absolutely, give us the money, but it's the recognition. And
not every sponsor is looking for sales conversion. Right.
Absolutely. So sorry, just quickly, you had said sales conversion, leadership authority, and what was the third, just for somebody in our chat?
It's a good corporate citizen, or like looking as a good corporate citizen. I don't know. I'm not 100. I got to go back and look at the third part of that, but I would say leadership authority, sales conversion, and good corporate citizen.
Absolutely.
Something like that. Those three things so they may not always just be looking for that sales thing, because if they were looking for sales all the time, they wouldn't probably do a lot of sponsorship with a lot of organizations. Because you can think, when you go to certain events, you see certain sponsors, you can tell they're not doing it to convert more sales. They're looking to get their name out there. Right? They're just looking to get their name out there. And then that's when you get in negotiation on, okay, when you find out what they're looking for, then you tailor your presentation on their needs.
Smart.
Right? I'm going to stop right there, because I could talk about that for like 3-4 hours. Okay. But let's put it this way. When I approached Edelman, and Edelman is the PR representative for Dove Men Plus Care, it's a whole long process, but long story short, and this was done over a phone, the first thing they said to me is, we can tell you're really passionate about fathers. There's a win right there. And the first question I asked the three ladies from Edelman, the PR agency, I said, hey, you work with Dove Men Care. What keeps you up at night working with Dove Men Care? The phone went silent for a minute. And if people don't believe me, I got the recording.
Yeah.
I have the record, and they had never been asked that question before. So I'm gonna put my brakes on there because I could go on. I went, God willing, I do it for IG. I'll share the whole process and how that became a reality.
Oh.
And we've had that collaboration with, now we're going to our 4th year, and it's still the only yearly collaboration they have with a fatherhood group in the world, which leads to me co-hosting a fatherhood show that they sponsor, and they pay myself and my co-host.
Which is just amazing. Absolutely.
And then, so that, again, here comes the business side of me, so credibility leads to profitability. So then when I contact other organizations for potential sponsorship, I can use the credibility of Dove Men Plus Care in my presentation. So that's a global recognized brand.
Oh, yes.
I go, wow, okay, you've been aligned with them for 4 years. Okay, you know what you're doing, or you're pretty serious. So credibility leads to profitability.
I like that. And again, Judy, I'm just going to reference that this session is recorded. So you will be able to, once it's posted on our YouTube page, is to go back and find that exact wording that he used, just in case.
And that's why you follow with me, because I gotta find I gotta nail down the third part, but I believe that is, I'd have to look in my notes. But great question about sponsor. And okay, which leads into another thing. If you're gonna do a podcast to make money, quit now. And I'm just being honest, because probably only 2 or 3% of people who do podcasts on a regular basis are making an income that they can live on.
Okay.
So I know this is a business podcast, but if you're looking to make money from it, now, if you're going to do sales, like convert sales or get leads, that's different. But there's some people may understand, oh, I want to do a show to make money. Oh boy.
Well, I see that, Judy, you have turned on your video. Did you have a question that you would like to ask? In
yeah, I think I remembered what the third point was. I think it was collaboration, which kind of is a little bit like the third one you came up with at the end. You said good corporate citizen, and then I don't know, I think you said collaboration the first time. So similar kind of. Yeah.
Like leadership authority, and then, or being looked at as a good corporate citizen. You know what? I'm not going to multi-curse here because I want to put my attention on you. I know it's in my notes somewhere, but I want to give all of you my full attention. And that's why you talk to me after.
Oh, you're muted, Diana.
Of course I'm muted. Thank you, Judy. Lyndon, thank you very much for dropping your question in the chat. We'd love to hear from you if you're comfortable to unmute yourself.
Linda, come on. I want to hear this upcoming voice. I want to get used to it.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me testing my voice out. I just wondered what different types of PR efforts have you found were particularly successful for sort of raising profile of the podcast?
When I first started out, it was just me, and I just putting myself out there, and just saying I had a site and I had a show, and just.
But who did you reach out to?
Okay, well, I don't know if you were here for the first one, but when I first started, all I had was a laptop, this microphone, and a dream. Blue Snowball microphone. People still use it. And I had a co-host, and we just did it on our own. Then we took a break, and then I started interviewing people who I knew. And then I took the big leap. I started to reach out to people who I didn't know. And one of the things, especially I say to entrepreneurs, don't attach your outcomes to your actions. So basically what I'm saying there is, not everything you do is going to come up, hey, they're going to come on. Now, I've been blessed. I'd say 90% of the people that I've reached out to have said yes. There have some who have said no because of not the right time. Now, if they tell you it isn't the right time, I say, no problem. When is a good time? Right? So others have said, you know what, I'm not comfortable. I said, okay, that's no problem. But if you're ever interested, I'm here. And I'll usually follow up with them in about 6 months. Say, just checking in, see if there's any change, etc. But as I've grown with the number of online conversations, my credibility is a heck of a lot higher than it was. So in the early days, get whoever you can, as long as they align with your show theme. You want alignment. So as long as they align with your thing, you get them on. And also too, get testimonials. And I'm going to go deeper, get video testimonials. Because then you can put them on your website and people say, oh, that person had a good experience. Nothing wrong with written testimonials, but video testimonials, so much more powerful. So much more powerful. So when you're first, it's a road when you're doing it all by yourself unless you have a team, but you can consider me part of your team now. And another thing I do for a lot of entrepreneurs and podcasters who I help, I don't like the word work with. I want to help you. When they're doing their presentations, I say, hey, you can put me as part of your team. They say, really? I said, well, I'm working with you. I'm helping you, aren't I? Yeah, well, we're part of the same team. So you get started, you stay steady, you don't quit.
I have another sort of very practical question.
Good.
I know that very often I'll say things that like, oh, that's interesting. And I say interesting like 6 million times or something like that. I've noticed that you're really quite gifted with not saying or ticking or making strange. You're very, very good at it. Was there something, were you naturally gifted in this way, or is this something you've learned to do?
Well, not naturally gifted. Like many years ago when I had hair, I did Toastmasters. And I would also suggest too, especially in the early days, listen to your shows. Because what you think people are hearing and what you think they're hearing can be two different things. And also too, if you have 2 or 3 people that you can just bounce, hey, I just did this show, what do you think? Because we all have our own lens of, oh, I sound great, but some other people may not.
But do you have any like ways of learning to get better at not saying
keep on doing it. After you're finished, ask your guests, how did it go? How did I do? And be open to get anything, but ask how you do. Again, listen to your recordings. One of the key things that I do is when I'm having a conversation with someone, and some of you may notice it here, when I ask a question, I shut up. I'll stay quiet for about 20 seconds.
So as a knock on, if you have a guest who comes on and they say, do you edit that or do you leave it to be absolutely natural?
If it's part of the way they are, I leave it.
Okay.
I don't want to edit too much because it can take away from the natural flow of the conversation. And again, if that's the way they are, it's all good. And again, some people, you could ask them a question and go, I don't want to cut that out because they're thinking.
Mm-hmm.
That's part of who they are, what they are. Why would I want to rob them of who they are, who they're presenting themselves to be? Is that helpful? Mm-hmm. Yeah. You want your guests to have as comfortable, natural experience as possible. Because if they have a good experience, who are they gonna? You know what they're gonna do? They'll probably tell other people. They'll at least give you a good testimonial, and that's part of being a brand ambassador for future guests. And then after you're finished too, if they've had a good experience, say, "Hey, do you know anyone else that you think would be good for the show?"
I have a question, Dr. Vibe.
You always are dangerous, so I got to get ready here. I got to get ready here. Okay. All right.
Do you perhaps have any examples of video testimonials that you've received?
I have, and let me see if I can set this up. Okay.
I'm just thinking back to a couple days ago, some awesome ones that you shared with me.
Yes. So I can multi-purpose. So as I'm finding a video testimonial, I can take another question. I can multi-purpose. So someone else, if there's another question, let's make it happen.
I do have another question. I'm going to take up some space here.
Okay.
This was submitted in advance, so it was someone's question. Do you have potential guests approach you? And if you do, which asks to be on your show are successful ones? And what's the best etiquette for people who want to be on other podcasts to approach hosts?
Okay. So again, the other day, Canada's Minister for Seniors approached me. I said, love it. No problem. So I worked with their press secretary. Seamless. And I do have, there's a lady, here's a blessing when you treat people well and you treat them with respect. There's a lady who I haven't communicated with for at least 4 years. She reached out to me 2 weeks ago, basically telling me she has for those who may or may not know, this is the 50th anniversary of hip hop music. And she has about 10 people she'd like me to interview about the history of hip hop music. So it's no different than you're doing face-to-face. How you treat people is so important before the show, during the show, and after the show. So now I've got 10 people who are going to be talking about hip hop music that I never thought about. But again, this person said, hey, Dr. Vibe, he's a really good guy. He has a platform that would be really good for you to appear on. Bang. Does that answer?
Yeah, I think it answers it for me for sure. Thank you.
No problem. Okay, let me see. I can take another one while I look up this testimonial.
Well, first of all, that's just absolutely fabulous about those upcoming interviews.
Yeah, that's going to be something. That's going to be really, really, really cool.
Oh, that's going to be epic. So like,
yes, but and after each one, what I'm going to be asking for, testimonial.
Yeah.
And one thing I also tell, this is just me, but again, I'm talking loosely, but I know most of the people here are doing a business podcast. I say that, hey, if you ever want to come back, no problem. I'm not a one and done person. So if you ever want to come back, you have a home here.
Oh, nice.
They love that.
Yeah.
They thank you so much. They go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, absolutely. Like sometimes you might think that you've got everything and that like, oh yeah, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do this podcast. And then you're doing it. And then it uncovers something else that it makes it not one and done. Like something's come to your thought that you didn't even potentially think of you're like, oh, I should probably find a solution for that one.
Well, another thing too is, and I think I mentioned this maybe in part 1 of the webinar, a conversation's good with someone for the first time if they say, man, I forgot to mention that. Oh, it went by so fast. I say, well, that's why we need you back. There's stuff we didn't get to cover. So I say it's just it's a natural lead in for that. So listening, so important. And listening and relating is so important. Again, I spent my early days doing all audio. They didn't have this. So that, Lyndon, to answer to your question, that really tuned my listening habits because I couldn't see. I had to relate to that person via phone or via online audio. So that has heightened up my listening skills. Plus, I've been a certified coach since 2015. So listening is the core. And when people felt listened to, it opens up wide spaces.
It really does. Well, just before we get to, were you able to find your?
Yes, I've been able to find this testimonial. Hopefully, I'll do a share screen. Okay, let's see if we can make this happen. All right, share screen. I'm going to cross my fingers.
Yeah, and you let us know if we can help you. You can send it to us and we can take care of it for you.
Can you, okay, you should be able, do you see a gentleman on a screen?
We do.
Yep.
Okay, now there may be a little bit of lag, but you'll get the audio cleanly. So here we go.
My name is Bill Caskey, and I had the distinct pleasure of being on the Dr.Vibe show here recently and just had an awesome experience. He is a really good interviewer. And not only that, but there's a conversation that happens, and he's really good at amplifying points and asking me really good questions. And I would just encourage, if you're considering going on with him, it's a great experience. He's got a really good audience, very interactive, and I applaud him for all the work he's done. And if you have any qualms about going on with Dr. Vibe, don't. Just get on the podcast if he asks you.
35 seconds.
That is an awesome video testimonial.
And he's a business salesperson, so I wanted to make sure I brought something with someone from a business background. Yeah. So 35 seconds. That's it.
Yeah.
I just asked him, tell me about your experience. I didn't even give him a script. I just let him, and you can tell it's natural, not scripted. He sounds like he's a pro. Bang.
No, that's a good one.
Awesome.
Jordan, was that an example you were looking for?
Yeah, that was the one you shared with me
Yeah.
last week. I just wanted everyone to have an opportunity to see how quick it was but so impactful. So thank you so much for sharing it.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. I'm glad I had a chance to share it with everyone.
No
So,
problem.
Judy, sorry, Jordan. Judy, I know your hand is up, but we actually had Lyndon who dropped her question in the chat first. So, Lyndon, did you want to unmute yourself and go first, and then we'll follow up?
I said Lyndon the voice. Lyndon.
So I actually have now two questions. So I'll be super quick. The first one was, did you use a particular platform to send to the gentleman who gave the testimonial to invite him to do that through?
Now, great question. They can use this,
Mm-hmm.
and it's actually a little sidebar story. I had a conversation with a gentleman last night who I told you did a documentary on defunding the police. It's an 83-minute documentary. He scaled it down from 2 hours. He did all the video recording on 2 iPhones. Okay. Now, there is a software out there that you can, I think, purchase online that people can click on it, and they can record it right there and send it to you. Jordan, if you can put that down, I'll find that information. But all I tell people, hey, you got one of these? Great. Record it, send it to me. Done.
Cool. And then my second question before that was actually, what do you do if you have a runaway guest? Like they go off piste, they sort of lose the thread to the conversation. How do you manage for that? Do you edit that out? Again, like what's your process?
That's a great question. Doesn't happen a lot, but when it does happen, you have one or two choices. You can let them and say and go back to the topic, and it can be very challenging because you don't want to be rude. And again, if you edit it out, if they watch it and you haven't told them you're going to edit it out, that may get them upset. So again, it comes to the skills of, again, pre-conversation, listening, and keeping this, like, I tell my friends that come on the show, because I don't call them guests, I'm here to steer the ship, you're driving the ship. So I want to make sure that at least whatever they want to talk about, at least we cover it, at least some of it during the conversation. Doesn't have to be the whole thing, but as long as some of it gets talked about during the conversation, that's great. And if they run on, I let them run on. So a lot of times people may not go crazy, but hey, it's their show. It's not my show.
Okay.
But whenever they're finished, I jump right back to where we left off.
And what if they say something that isn't really in line with your values?
So I do have one online show I host and produce that one of the ladies curses like a sailor, as they say, old term. Now for that platform, it's good, but when I put out the replay, that is all edited out. I can't do anything live, but the funny thing is people like her cursing. So again, that's who she is, and she's very passionate. So the live, she can say what she wants. The replay, it gets all edited out. So also, yeah, after our show, and it's actually funny. We're thinking about doing creating a community, just having a private party will catch all of her best curses. Just put them in a row. Maybe have one of those shows of Jill's best curses. And it's funny that actually the lady's name is Jill Jones, and wonderful lady. And one of her claims to fame is that she was a member of Prince's entourage for 10 years. And I love Jill. Jill is so passionate. So I'm not going to take it away. Now, you're not going to get that most of the time in a business podcast, probably not. But what I do is I offer two versions. One, the live version, people can watch, and then I have an edited version where it's all taken out. But again, you don't know people all the time. But again, if you have that pre-conversation, you may want to say, if you have a pre-conversation, say, look, just want to make you know that no vulgar language is allowed. Again, you can tell them ahead of time. You certainly, if you want to avoid that as much as possible, tell them that ahead of time. Like when it has come up outside of Jill, people go, "Oh, I don't know if I'm allowed to curse on this show." And I say, "No, you're not." They say, "Okay." So you can establish those rules to set everything up for success if you want to say. And even some shows, and you can do this if you're doing a show. You can send, again, if you have a list of questions or you want to send out some questions, you can say, hey, no cursing or language is allowed. They know ahead of time. Again, that's up to you and your audience too.
Okay, well, thank you very much. So, Judy, the floor is yours if you'd like to unmute yourself.
Sure, thanks, Diana. Yeah, how long, Dr. Vibe, how long do you wait, or do you even wait before sending a request for a testimonial? And what do you call it? Do you call it a testimonial?
So I do it right after I ask them. And I have a template. So if they say yes, I have the template. I say, as soon as we're finished, I have a template. I just replace their name, give them some of an outline, bang. Because the more you wait to ask for it, the more they're not going to remember you. It's always good to ask in the moment, especially right after finish. I'm going to see if I'm going to multi-purpose here. I'm going to see if I can read what I sent out as a testimonial, but I can multi-purpose. So if you have another question, go for it.
And that's something you would email? Or?
I would email them. Yes. I would ask them verbally right after, and then I would email them. And yeah, because it's so
like,
good. Go ahead.
Would you be willing to give a testimonial? You might say that at the end of the show off air.
Yep, right after we finish. And that's another thing too. When you're doing a show, ask them before they start, are you available to stay on for a few minutes after the show finishes, just to make sure that you were comfortable? Okay, let me see if I can. I'm going to see if I can find it really quick what I send out as a testimonial. I'll read it, and Jordan, put that down as part of the resource, what I put as a testimonial, but this is what I'll read. I'll just read what I send out. I hope that all is fine with you and your family. I would like to request a small favor from you, a testimonial that will give others a sense of the great experience that you had being on the show. Your testimony can be as short or as long as you like, can be in text or video form. It is valuable to the future of my show, and just as importantly, allows me to keep on improving on the level of conversations that I host. I would like to thank you in advance, and it's appreciated and not taken for granted.
Thank you for sharing that.
You're very welcome.
I like that.
I
So
did have one more question. Basically, it was the interview that you mentioned about defunding the police that you did with
Yes.
somebody recently.
Yes.
When and where is that able to be
If you
seen
go,
or listened to?
if you go to the Dr. Vibe Show YouTube page, it is there.
Perfect.
Or
Thank you.
you can reach out to me directly, and I can send you the link directly.
Great.
Now, it was
Thank
a bit
you.
of a challenge technical wise because my background was a little funky, but I didn't care. Most important thing, the audio was good. Their audio and video was good, and the conversation was rich. And Matthew Solomon was great. He's actually based in Los Angeles. And I think Jordan already has it up on the screen. Oh, sure. There's a link up there. So she may already put it up. Thank you, Jordan.
No problem. That's a link to his main YouTube channel,
great.
Judy.
There
So
you go.
you can kind of sort through and pick which episodes
Oh,
you'd like to see.
All the millions of epic conversations that I've had. Who's next?
Me. I have a question. Do you ever interview someone that you don't see eye to eye with, or on a topic? Like you mentioned, like defunding.
Yeah.
Talking about something that you don't necessarily believe, or that you believe passionately in and they don't. Do you ever? How did those? Can you talk to that?
I've had people like that. Many years ago, I had someone on the platform that was a real right winger from the US. And I had him on. I let him say, so it wasn't, I let him talk, and I had some questions, but it wasn't, I don't come on to combat with people. I let them express their thoughts and values and opinions. I may get into it a little bit with them, but not too much. Like in the zone I'm in right now, that's what my audience wants. I know what they want, so I fill their cup.
Yeah.
So that's
so you're selective with who you interview then. So if you had that same person from years ago, I don't know.
I'd still have them on.
Might not. Oh, you would?
I'd still have them on. Absolutely. Like right now, I'm serving my audience first. So if they tell me they want someone from, I'll go after them to have them on the platform. Sure. Right now, but go ahead.
Do you have to spin the explanation or the promotion differently if you don't believe in?
No, I just say this person is this, and this. They're going to be on the platform. Because the more spin, the more spun.
Yeah, no, for sure.
And I want people to be who they are, not who they aren't. So
good. And you don't always have to agree either.
No,
right?
No, I don't. I don't.
That is a good thing.
They're like, and this is something too you may want to put at the end of your show's disclaimer. So there are some, like, I host a show on Monday and Friday mornings, and the guests have their own opinions. So at the end, we say this: the guests' opinions and views do not necessarily of the show.
Yeah.
Reflect. So it's good to have that. Again, I don't know how much it comes up in a business show, but that is something you may want to put potentially in the end, saying, well, just because this person's saying this, it doesn't mean we necessarily agree with what he's saying.
Well, and I would think it would. I'm trying to think of instances where it could come up. And I think I don't know if IG did one or if business did one and had somebody on that gave advice.
Yes.
Maybe wasn't the best.
I think yes. I think if you're having a guest on, I think that's a good idea to have for your podcast, whether you say it verbally or if you're doing a video podcast, have that at the end.
That's good. Okay, thank you.
It's a good way of CYA.
Thank you.
All right.
Hey, can I give a little tip as well that I find?
Sure, Jay.
Just because it's easy to sort of ruminate about all the little things that could happen, but generally speaking, I um, try to realize that there's no point worrying about things that might happen because there's a good chance they won't happen at all. So only address or worry about things if they actually do happen, because every situation is different and every situation can be repaired or fixed. Every relationship can be fixed. So don't try not to worry about things that may or may not happen, because there's a good chance that they're not going to happen anyway. And if you sort of put that stuff aside and just assume that they won't happen, that can help you stay focused and kind of get away from some of the barriers and stuff that might prevent you from getting started.
Yeah. But coming back to also Mickey's point, I think if you're doing a show and you have guests and they're giving their opinions, having that at the end would be a good thing to do. Because you don't want someone coming to you on your say, hey, well, you had this person on your show and you must agree with him because you let him on. They're making an assumption. So when you have that disclaimer at the end, bam, that frees you. And it depends what type of show you're doing. But if you're having people coming on especially giving advice, you definitely want to have that. You definitely want to have that, because you don't want people coming in and suing you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Great question.
I have a question.
Yes. The voice.
The voice. Video or audio only? Are people more comfortable with doing just an audio podcast, or are they more comfortable being able to see you and interact with you visually?
There's many facets to this question. I get it more and more these days. It's obviously easier to start an audio podcast, but we are so in a video culture these days. Video takes more preparation, more work. I would say, again, how much time do you have to? I'd say for most people, it's so easy to do these days. You can do the video, but again, the quality comes into it, this, that. That's a hard one for me. If someone would have to sit with me one-on-one and I'd have to ask, how much time do you have? Are you doing it by yourself? What do you want your show to look like in a year's time? If you're going to get by those first 10, by the way. Video it's easy. You know what? That's hard. It's a ping pong ball. What's good for one could be not good for the other. I think just start. To be honest with you, just start. Like when I started off, like, you can do a video podcast with this.
Mm-hmm.
Now again, the quality may not be the greatest because you're going to probably be using Wi-Fi, but you can get started. It just depends, again, how much time do you have, or you can hire someone to help you with that. Someone like myself can help you with that, with production and things like that.
I just wondered if even if it was only going to be a podcast and only the finished output was only going to be audio,
right?
If people sound different when they can see each other, or is it better for them to kind of be in their head and not see each other, not be distracted?
That's a tough question.
Okay.
That's a really, because everyone's different. Like, I bet you someone who's 19 years old may answer that different than someone who's 45 years old. But again, I'm not going to make assumptions because video is such a dominant culture these days. And again, this is the thing. Do you already have, here's a question for you. Do you have a community already? Ask them.
Okay.
So that's one of the advantages. If you already have a community, see what they prefer. That will help you with your decision, because if you're addressing their needs, that means the more engaged they're going to be with whatever content you put out.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Good question. Actually, Jordan, put that down because I'm going to see if I can pull one or two articles about video versus audio podcasting. If you can, please. Thank you.
So I actually have a question, and I know you've touched on this before, but for those of us who are just starting out, and we might not have necessarily much of a following, other than I'll call my dad and my sister to come and watch that type of thing, and call in those favors. But how else would you suggest that you approach people for interviews if you are new and they don't know anything about you, and maybe you don't necessarily have your social media or your profile set up?
I would just be honest and say, hey, I'm just starting out, and I see you as a leader in your industry, and I just like to know if you'd like to come on my show and just share with my community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
you want to big them out, saying, hey, I see you as a leader in your area, in your industry, and say, and because you're making, saying, hey, I recognize you, so you're showing respect for them. And doing that, and that's the way I would start. Like, what I still have to do cold calling, getting some people on the platform. I'm still reaching out to some people who I don't know. Again, I have the credibility now, but back when I had to reach out for people, and again, I didn't attach my outcomes to my actions. I realized it's a law of averages. The more I put out there, the more I'm going to probably get people. And as those people build up, and as I get testimonials, it'll get easier to get people on who don't know who I am. They say, oh, you've got receipts, you've got a body of work. Because the last thing they want to say, well, now if you're just starting out, slowly, surely. And by the way, I'm more than happy to come on all your shows. Okay. Just putting it out there to add some credibility. But there's also platforms out there where you can actually reach out to potential guests.
Mm-hmm.
So you can do that also. There are websites, I think one's called matchmaker.fm, where you can put your podcast out there and see if any people in their community would be interested. That's actually something that StreamYard's doing right now with their platform. They're asking you to put down your profile, and now you can match yourself up for guests, or you can get on other people's shows.
Yes, so I just found the website, so I'll post it here for everybody. But also, one of the things that you had said that really stuck with me was that if you're just starting out and you don't really know who you're going to have on your show, invite somebody that you know that you can have a good conversation with.
Yeah.
Somebody that you know you're going to have a good rapport, and that really stuck with me because we all have somebody we can lean on in life and says, hey, come on my show. Like for Lyndon, it could be somebody who's a fellow baker or a cooker.
Yeah.
Able just to kind of bounce ideas and situations off of.
So Lynn, I'm going to give you a great example here, how I got someone on my show who was pretty high profile. So I did say earlier on, I'm a foodie, and there's an online magazine called buyblacks.com. It's Black Canada's #1 online magazine. And every spring and every fall, they do Black Restaurant Week, where they have all different restaurants right across Canada offering special menus. So the last restaurant week they had in the fall, I went to this restaurant in downtown Toronto that features, I can't forget what type of food now. Can't remember the country, but one of the specialties they had was rum cheesecake. So I don't go on Instagram Live a lot, but I said, you know what? And it's really strange. Whenever I do an Instagram Live and I'm eating food, people go crazy. I don't get it. But I was at this restaurant in Toronto and I was eating their rum cheese. So I went live and I was saying, oh, how much I love my rum cheese, etc. There was a lady who I had reached out to 7 months before who liked the video. Now, when I reached out to her 7 months before, she gave me her manager. Her manager never responded. But when I noticed that she liked the video, I went, bam. I saw you like my video. I've been trying to reach out to you. Your manager never got back in touch with me. I'd love to have you on the show. She said, when? So that's another thing. Because there may be some companies that you want, or some people you reach out to, they have a gatekeeper or they have someone handling them. be ready for that. But also, if you can get in direct contact with a person you want, makes it so much easier. And she came on the show. She's a licensed therapist, has 20 years experience. She has her master's in social work. Her husband has over 500,000 followers on various YouTube channels. You know what he did? He shared the interview on all his platforms. So I'll refer back to an artist named Prince. He said something a long time ago. Content is king, distribution is the emperor. So once you start doing your podcasts, see if you can get them on as many different podcast directories. So distribution, getting your content out there on as many different platforms. And just in the last 2 months, I've had 2 fairly large directories in the United States say, hey, we'd love to have your content on our platform. Beautiful. That's free publicity, let alone in a totally different country. So just a little story, but that was eating rum cheesecake got this person on my platform. So it was just a lot of fun, and dealing with her directly, and she's coming back every month now. So that's even more credibility for me and for the show. So that's a big win. Now remember, it's taken a long time, folks. It just happened overnight. But I believe that where you're starting now, you can get achieved a lot faster than what it took me. Like, I'm putting up my hand. I want to help you shortcut the shortcut.
So you had mentioned platforms a couple of times. Is there a particular platform, and this is a question that was submitted.
Yep.
Do you have a platform that you believe works better than others, or is it kind of like, if you
it all depends where your audience is. Like for video stuff right now, YouTube is it for me right now. Like I put up a YouTube short, which is a 1-minute video on YouTube the other day. It had over 2,000 views.
Okay.
So again, that's why knowing where your audience is and what they like is so important. If you can find out where your audience is, that's your sweet spot. Mm-hmm. I don't do TikTok. Why don't I do TikTok? Because my audience isn't on TikTok.
Okay. And maybe just for those that don't know, like how did you find where your audience was? Is it just maybe based on the amount of followers and your click numbers?
Followers. And this is something I became more attuned to in the last 2 or 3 years, my analytics. Okay. So for people who are going to do video podcasts, YouTube is really hot right now. TikTok is good. Now, can't say anything bad about TikTok, but the reason why for me, YouTube is better is A, my audience is there, and 2, pop quiz. Who owns YouTube? Does anyone know?
Isn't it Google?
Exactly. So when you do good on YouTube, it helps you with your search engine optimization on Google.
Tricks of the trade.
Right? And Google is the #1 search engine in the world. So there's a relationship there. So I've been blessed. At the end of last year, actually the last day of last year, I passed over 1,000 subscribers to my YouTube channel. I now have analytics coming out of the yin yang. So I know now when is the best time to post my video podcast on YouTube, when my subscribers are most likely to be on. Now, hey, I'm just a small fry because, again, real life story. I interviewed a potential intern who goes to Sheridan College. Hopefully she's going to come on as an intern for the summertime. She's 23 years old. She has 120,000 YouTube subscribers. And she showed me the plaque she got from YouTube, having over 100,000 subscribers.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. 100. I just went, I'm going, okay. So I'm doing all I can to have her part of my team in the summer. So there's never enough, but she's done it. She's done the experience. So I am leaning on her to work. Here's another thing I'll say about all you new podcasters. Don't dismount getting out there and meeting people. I'm blessed these days. I go out to events. You're Dr. Vibe. I've watched you. You're really good. I say, great. And I find out what they do. I say, would you like to come on the show? Yeah, I'd love you. You asked me? Yeah, why not? But don't think everything needs to be in front of a screen. Face-to-face goes a lot of, but be strategic. Be strategic, right? Know why you're going there, etc. That's a whole other conversation. That's for the entrepreneur thing, but yes, it's part of this thing also. So don't discount face-to-face, which leads to a whole other conversation about doing live podcasts. That's another IG one. That's another IG presentation. I'm creating more content on the fly, but yeah.
Well, we're just coming into the last 5 minutes of our session with Dr. Vibe. I'm wondering if, we have posted his email address. You're able to get in touch with him, but is there anybody else out there that would like to, whether pop their question into the chat, I'd be happy to ask on your behalf, or you can unmute yourself and ask yourself.
Has this been worth your while, everyone who's live? I'd love to either hear you or type in the chat, like on a scale of 0 to 10, how was it? And I can take whatever, even if you give me negatives, I can take that too. Thank you, Lyndon. Lyndon, I am looking forward to hearing from you. And you know what? I'll even be a guest because I can say how I love to cook jerk chicken on the barbecue.
I would absolutely love that. So you will hear from me.
Yeah, I love, and yeah, I love to do jerk chicken on the barbecue. I'm more and more as I go in this journey. I love to cook. I love to cook.
I don't have a question, but I actually have a comment. I was just waiting to the end. I went through a bunch of your YouTube videos, and the thing that I noticed the most was that as I skipped through it to try to kind of find your style, you're never talking, which is like a good thing, right? Like I had to kind of nail in, and I'm like, where are the questions? And you have this way of just kind of putting the question out there and letting your guests just kind of go off, and it's really, really effective. And I found myself actually starting to tune into the guests, which was not necessarily why I was there, but it was definitely captivating the way you asked those questions. But I had to look really hard to find the spots where you actually speak, because you're not talking very much.
Well, that's done on purpose. And I think I mentioned this at the beginning. I don't want it to be about me. I want it to be about the guests and the audience. So I use this rule. When I'm doing a live conversation, I do 20% of the talking. They do 80% of the talking. 80-20. And I'm glad you picked that up, Jay. And it takes time because we want to jump in and no, peel it back. Give them space. Give them space, because the more they talk, if you're a good listener, the more questions you're going to have. Right? The more questions you're going to have. And you know when you've hit a sweet spot during your conversations, when you hear, that's a really good question. When you hear your guest or guest saying, that's a really good question, you're on it. You're on it. Or they say, no one's ever asked me that before. You're on it. Pat yourself on the back. But with some people, you're just happy that they got through, because they'll say, you'll always get the guest that time, well, what are we going to talk about? And then at the end they go, are we done? What happened? This was so fast. They surprise themselves, and they say they'll always ask. Well, many, especially when they're on for the first time, they go, "So, what do you think?" I say, "Well, what do you think? You were the star of the show, not me." And it's just. But yeah, Jay, good point. I don't want to dominate the conversation, and that's what I say when I ask a question. I stay quiet. Give them the time. Take care, Jay. I hope I hear from you. But yeah, I it's their show. I'm there to steer the ship. They're there to drive the ship. Simple as that. Anybody else? This has been so fun.
I agree.
I
I
gotta
agree.
leave. Gotta leave. Oh my gosh.
I know.
It's all right.
I'm going to jump in just because I'm mindful of the time, and I want we will
Wow,
respect
yeah.
everyone's time today. And
Absolutely.
just like you were saying, it's flown by.
Lyndon, find me on LinkedIn. Reach out to me via LinkedIn.
Awesome. So I'll send an email next week as well with a copy of the recording of this session, Dr. Vibe's contact
Resource sheet.
info,
Yeah, and some
resource sheet.
Some resource sheet.
I also just wanted to post a link in our chat box to our Innovation Guelph event page. We have some other events coming up in the next little while. We have a Toolkit Tuesday next week. We have a Lessons from Leaders in March. So visit our event page and check out those events. And just a huge thank you to Dr. Vibe for the last couple weeks for the 3 sessions we've had. This has been such a privilege for us to learn from you and be able to engage with you. And we're super excited for our continued relationship for us and our community.
That's what I'm excited about the most, the continued relationship. I want to say again, it's been an absolute joy and pleasure to work with the IG family. And yes, I will get out there soon. And hopefully we can have a get together. And I'd love to meet all you face to face. But if not, you've got my email address. I'll just close out with these things. Remember to give yourself grace. And also don't just manage your time, manage your energy. And you've reached the hardest part when it's the easiest to quit.
Thought-provoking.
Come on a Tuesday. Okay, well, we're going to talk. And especially the IG family, thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'm very excited to continue the journey. And when we work together, we win together, and we want to help as many people as we can. We're not perfect, but we get a little bit better each day.
Thank you. Thanks, Dr. Vibe. Thank you,
Blessings, family.
Carolyn
Take care.
and Rosalie.
Looking forward to ASL interpreters. Much thanks. All right, family. Hope to hear from you. Keep the faith.
Bye.